Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
And we would like to welcome everybody back to the Football's Family Podcast. This month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's also, I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a little bit. And I've had three guests on now, and I've worked on another one, but it didn't work out on the timing. And I've had another podcast on. The main thing about this month is I want people to see that there's ways that they can get hope, and they should help, I should say, and they should get that help, and it will let them have hope that, you know, the darkness that they're going through isn't the end. I mean, in history, Winston Churchill called depression his black dog. It was always following him. And I started taking that moniker as well with mine. I call it the black dog. And, you know, you hear of hellhounds and you hear of things like that. That's similar to what depression is in a lot of ways. It's something that doesn't leave you alone. It's constantly there. And there's other mental illnesses that do the same thing. I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to give any diagnosis or anything like that. But I can tell you from personal experience and from study that mental health does not heal itself, and nor does it ever claim to be able to heal itself. So I encourage you to get some help and to find someone you can trust that can start that route for you. But enough of me talking right now. I've got a special guest today that agreed to come on, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I am an expert, so I'm so happy I could be here for you. Not sure on what that expertise is in, but but I am here for you. Hello, sir. I am Brent Hand of the Hysteria 51 podcast. It's a comedy show. We talk about the world of the weird and everything in it, and been talking to you for years and years, sir.
Yeah, I want to say, and Lord willing, I can get him on and we can talk about Hysteria 51 because I got a lot of fun stuff to talk about with that. I think you, if I remember correctly, your show was the first podcast that I listened to.
Wow.
You and Arnie for the Football History Dude podcast. And I wasn't into it. I'll be honest, I wasn't into podcasting. I didn't even know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I started listening to it. I'm like, this is Nerd Central. I love it. I love it. And right now, you're not on video, but right now I'm wearing the Hysteria 51 shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's got the typical gray alien on it, which if you ever watch the X-Files, the truth is out there and they're coming to get us. Apparently.
And our tagline is the truth is out there, but you won't find it here. So.
Now, I remember the anyway, I'm getting off set, but yeah, the truth is out there, but you won't find it here. You got that English announcer doing it. Love it. I love it. I love it. I've got Brent on here again. I'd love to have you when you get a chance to talk about the weird and the news of the weird, because I'm right down your alley in a lot of ways. Your show is amazing to me. I love it still.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
But today I have you on here because over the years I've gotten to know you via Facebook. It's you know, he's now down in God's country, so I might get to actually meet
we become friends, and you know, just from, you know, you're listening, we were interacting, then we started talking, you know, outside of this, then we've done shows together for other podcasts that I was producing and stuff. And, you know, it's just, it's funny how that it happens. That's how the world works now. You know, it's not, friendships aren't always the person that you're sitting next to at the pub or at church or work or something like that. They come in different forms because the world's so much smaller in some ways.
Oh, it is. It is. And that's how I started on this podcast here with Arnie Chapman, the Football History Dude. I got in touch with him, talked to him, and eventually he said, "Do you want to try one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know how it would go." And this is like, this will be 139 episodes, wow. I believe.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. There's no way I should have made it past 2. But you know, it is, Brent. And the thing is, you only get a little bit of a person when you talk to them. But one thing I've seen about you and your wife, Lisa, is that y'all are real people who That's what I want in life. I want people to see real because there's so much fake out there.
Well, it's a lot of people are more guarded. Maybe I don't have the skeletons in my closet, or maybe I'm just pretending. But, when I wanted to do my show and I wanted to be, I didn't want to pretend to be someone I wasn't. And I think that came through. And in other ways too, I've been on shows talking about my struggles with mental health and growing up and things like that. And I just tried to always be, hey, this is who I am. I don't want to say take it or leave it, but you know what I mean? Like, for better or worse, this is what you get, kind of thing.
Well, when Kevin Crispin, who are one of those guys that if he was on Star Trek, he would be an empath.
Yeah,
he's that good. He is that good, and I'm not saying that in a negative. That to me is a very huge positive. That's who he is.
Absolutely.
When he said, come on Sad Times, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work, but he gave me, and he came on mine too. He came on my podcast and we talked about it. I think it was last year sometime. He gave me the chance to come on and talk, and I was able to tell my story, and we're going to talk a little bit about it today. But he also allowed me to write a blog, and I did one last year, and I've got one in this year for that. Hopefully that'll be up whenever Kevin has the opportunity to do that. But he had you on, and the reason I listened to yours, and it's kind of like last year I did it was a Christmas memorial service at a local funeral home. I've done this several years now. I absolutely love it in the sense, like, I'm glad I can help people.
Right.
And I got up and I said, I want you to listen to this song. And it was by Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and it was the Christmas Canon Rocks, basically is what it is. And I know you know it. And I sat there thinking, I'm exposing myself, not in the sense of, lewd indecency, but I'm exposing part of myself with this song, because this song to me matters. It changes who I am. It changes how I feel about Christmas and life.
Well, you say lewd indecency. Sometimes being exposed in the way you're talking about is almost more not jarring, but scary. It can be, you know what I mean?
Well, I sat there.
Peek behind the curtain.
I sat there shaking. I'm like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have done this. This is not something that I should have done. And it turned out that it was great. People were commenting on this in the song. Not that I was looking for comments, but it was kind of like, I'm showing you part of me. So when you came on Sad Times, when I came on Sad Times, it was a part of me and part of you that you're guarded, as you say, your walls come up. And for you in particular, that's the reason I asked you to get on here, because you are willing to do that. I had a guy, and Brent, I don't know if you had a chance to hear it. If you do, listen to him. His name is Zaquan. Zaquan, actually. Zaquan is the Tennessee version of it. That guy is what you call a real man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, he's a real man. And he told me stories I didn't even know about. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if he's black, I'm white. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, any type of color. Mental health is something that affects everybody and is viewed differently in each community. So can you tell us in your own words, what, you don't have to go into details, but what was your experience with mental health?
Well, growing up, I was born in 79. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. My mother, I lived in a house where my mother was mad all the time. It was a very angry. She disciplined us with, silent treatment and things like that. And there was not a lot of thought of mental health, and you didn't know what was wrong. And I suffered from depression, and it wasn't until I got a little older and I realized that what was going on, and I went and I got help. And unfortunately at that time, it still had a stigma, and it still does to this day. But I always tell people, if you have high blood pressure, you treat it. If you have, any other disease, you treat it. But why is there a stigma for mental health? There's a disorder, or maybe there's a chemical imbalance, like it could be causing anything. Go get help. But too many people either don't realize it, which is a lot of it. When you stub your toe and it hurts and you go to the doctor or something, that's a little easier than something you've had your whole life that has just been an issue. you don't realize, you just think that's me. But what if there's a better you, or a different you out there? Growing up, it was just something that we didn't talk about until much later on. And, my mother, like I said, I had a lot of issues. And then when I was graduated from college and older, she realized that she had mental health issues and went and started getting help. And unfortunately, I was a little bit angry because it felt like, why didn't you do this sooner? But that was wrong on me. You know what I mean? Because there is the right time is whenever you do it. You know what I mean? But growing up with someone who has issues of depression or mental health, and it's untreated, or maybe it's treated and just not treated well, or issues, it can take a toll, and you don't know how to breach it with people. You don't know sometimes even anything's wrong other than this is my life. You know what I mean?
I get, and I agree with you that, of course, what we say on this show is opinion based, but there's a lot of facts behind it. So please do not take what we're saying as
this is my opinions.
This is Brent's opinion
on my life, and it might not work for you. It might not even be working for me. But this is what I say.
I've had this since 13.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember 13, and I'm 44. For 31 years, this has been something I didn't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a clue. And when I started understanding there's some things that are different, you keep talk to people about it, especially I was born in '79 as well. And, 80s, 90s, not the thing, 2000s, it changes a little bit. But when I did my son's funeral and I got up and talked,
mm-hmm.
I was honest and I said, guys, we have to break the stigma. We have to break it. And the word end is something that people say, but breaking to me is more dramatic. We have to stop it. Men, especially women,
mm-hmm.
There's two different perspectives, or at least what I understand, Brent. Maybe you have a better insight. For women, the word hysterical comes up, and that's so demeaning.
Yeah.
For men, it's more weakness, and again, that's demeaning too. We're two different genders in this situation, and yes, we are. In my view, I'm telling you this because this is who I am and this is what I do. I believe we were created differently for a purpose,
right?
But that doesn't mean that we are that drastic to say that if a woman has, and I'm putting this in general, if a woman has mental health concerns or issues, she's hysterical. But if a man has it, it's a weakness. So neither one of them should talk about it because
right.
of the stigma that's put on that.
That's exactly right. And they used to say, oh, you're a woman, you're a wife, they would put you in a home or give you a lobotomy. Men were taught to hold it in, hold it down, don't let those things out, both of which are horrifying in different ways, but horrifying. And I'm going to, you spoke of someone, and I want to sing his praises. Kevin Crispin. He hosts Sad Times podcast. It's a fantastic show. He has struggled with depression, OCD, many things his entire life. I went to college. I'm a couple years older than Kevin. And I remember I met Kevin. We became very close friends. And he was the first person that when I met him was like, yeah, I struggle with mental health. And I'm like, what? Like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? Like, not looking down on him, like startling. And then he made me realize it's okay. You know what I mean? And it's okay to be vulnerable, not just to be vulnerable and not to milk that or to use it, but to be like, hey man, I can't, I'm not going to tell you, hey man, I'm going to go help you lift that couch if I got a bad back. You know what I mean? I feel like he was the first one to be like, yeah, like I'm not in a good headspace. I need to be away from things like that. And he's made a living his whole life. And now he does it for, this is what he does is he talks about these issues with people. And it really was eye-opening for me to see someone, a peer, a friend, be like, yeah, that's cool. And I, maybe it was because I was in college and more people were open to it, but I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And, like I said, I had a mother who was angry all the time and lashed out and, a disciplinarian, and because she was unhappy. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, it's okay. it was a 180-degree switch to me to even have someone be like, yeah, this is normal, and do your best to make the best of it.
And not only that, but a male.
Yeah, that's the thing. The proverbial, we don't talk like that, or didn't, and like you said, it was looked down on, unfortunately, because, keep your head down and be a man. Well, sometimes being a man means saying that, hey, I need help, whatever that help might be. That's just a grandiose full thing.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. And you can hear we have we're getting mowed around here. So if you hear that in the background, there's a mower outside the office that I'm in right now. So if I close the door,
it season.
It is the season, and you're going to get used to this in Tennessee. We have more seasons than just 4.
Right. I hear you there. I'm moving to Tennessee from just next to Chicago, the town Berwyn, Illinois. And they always, we have the lake effect because we're right next to the Great Lakes. So, it's that whole, if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes because it changes all the time. Yeah, I'm with you.
We don't have that. It goes from hot to hotter to what are you thinking to
the only warmer. Thing I will say that everyone doesn't realize is because of the lake and everything, we have 90s to 100% humidity all the time. So it's just as humid there. Everyone's like, get ready for the humidity. I'm like, ugh, that's the only thing I'm not escaping. Speaking of things that'll make you depressed, just going outside and, oh man, it looks like I jumped in the swimming pool.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Yep. And they're like, I'll just get used to it. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to get used to, but I'll trade it for the urban sprawl any day.
Well, you're going to enjoy it.
Speaking of, not getting off topic, but talking about that, I grew up on a farm I grew up in the country outside of a town of 700. Then I went to college. Then we moved I am directly next to Chicago. So you wouldn't know if you're in my town or Chicago. You don't know when it ends and another city begins. I've been there for 13 years, let's say. I am so ready to get out. And that was one of the things we were pushing is that's just not the real world to me. And that gives me stress, just the hustle and bustle and things like that. Sometimes a move or something like that can be good for your mental health, or at least my anxiety, because I get anxiety about a lot of things, and now I'm at least removing the constant traffic and stress and everything out of there and changing it for something else, I'm sure.
Well, Nashville is growing. Way off the subject. Nashville's growing, but where you're going, if it's where I think it is, and we won't say it over Facebook or over this podcast, but where I think you're going, it's going to be a lot slower.
Oh my God, it's so much slower. It's just great.
Just remember, talk slower around us, please.
You people, as that sounds so terrible. You're the Southern. I'm not in a hurry. Is something to get used to.
I tried
it's
out
a little hard
to
get used to.
I tried out at a church in Berea, Ohio. It was March or April, and there was a foot of snow on the ground because it's right off one of the Great Lakes. Mm-hmm. And I got up and I said, guys, this is how fast I talk. And they looked at me thinking, who is that? But I'm looking up here. I this month, and we're going to go into it. I'm going to go ahead and just mention it. I've got a Spotify, subscription because I got tired of you only get 6 skips per.
Yeah.
I hate that. Play Dave Matthews. When I say Dave Matthews Band, do not play somebody else.
Oh my gosh, amen. Right, I hear you. Yep.
I'm just saying, just don't play anybody else. But I now have different songs, and I've got my podcast, I've got football history, I've got several other podcasts like Hysteria 51, Freaky Folklore, a lot of stuff on there. But I have a playlist called Depression, and I actually had a song on there that I had to take off because it was making me angry because how real it was. And I'm not going to mention the name because I don't have rights to it, I guess. But I will say this one. There's a group called We Are Messengers. And if you have an app, Brent, I can't play. Obviously, it's licensed, and I don't have the license agreement here. But it's called Maybe It's Okay. And if you get a chance to listen to that, and there's a line in it, Kevin obviously Kevin didn't borrow it because it's out there, and I think this was relatively new. And the line is, maybe it's okay to be not okay, is what they're saying. Maybe it's okay to not be okay.
That's a powerful thing to even try to wrap your head around. It takes a long time to realize that it's okay to not be okay.
Right before that song on my playlist, I have Five Finger Death Punch, Times Like This. Or Times Like These. And good gracious, if those songs do not blend together. There's a line that says, I read all the pages from left to right. I take one in the morning and one at night. And basically he says the fire is basically gone. And let me give you a little background. Today is May 25th that we're doing this, 2024. Odds are this program might be released the 26th or 27th. It just depends, because I think after this, I've got to get out of this place. May 27th is my birthday, Brent. So coming up, I'll be 45 in just a couple of days.
Well, happy birthday to you early, but yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. May 25th, 2022, school was ending for juniors. And my son was a junior. He had a 4.0. He had a 36 on his ACT, 35, 36, something like that. You can't do much better than that. In fact, I don't think you can do any better than that. I think that's pretty much it.
36, I think, is the top. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think he had a 36. If not, he had a 35. It was insanely high. I made it 25 and I was thrilled. He was struggling. COVID really messed him up. And if people say that the COVID lockdown helped, I'm going to disagree. And I have a problem with certain doctors that were in public. I did a little bit more research about a certain doctor that starts with an F, and that guy is not necessarily, well, okay, I get to keep my opinions to myself. Anyway, he went to school that morning, Brent, and found out that, he was going to fail a course. We tried. He came up to us one day and said that he was suicidal, and I'd been there. And imagine if I know anything about you, you've probably been there a few times. And, we've got him help. He's taking medicine. He wasn't taking his medicine. Medicine is a Band-Aid. You have to get a lot more help than that. So it was a Wednesday, and my wife and my daughters and I were at a person's house, and we were in the hot tub. Got home. I was in the shower, and my wife calls me right across we don't have a big house, but it's long. She said, I can't get into your son's room, and he's not answering his phone. So I looked at the door, and I knew what I was going to see. I'm not dumb to the part that, this can't happen.
Right.
And the door itself, Brent, I didn't realize I could do this, but I knocked the door down. I broke it in half, knowing what I would see in there. And the first thing I had to do when I looked in there, I told my wife and my girls to take the dogs, put them up, and get away from here.
Yeah.
I walked in there to my son's room, and I looked and I saw what he did. I saw more. This is a family show, but I'm not going to explain what I saw. But it's something that a dad, parent, mom should never ever see. When people die on movies, sometimes the older movies, they die with their eyes closed. They don't do that. It's not a natural reaction to close your eyes. It's a natural action to keep them open. I smacked his face, knowing that it wouldn't do any good. Called the ambulance, and then sheriffs came over there and everything like that. And we had some good people trying to talk to me. I even talked to the sheriff later on and said, the one that you had talking to me, I know him. He did an amazing job. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
I know he did an amazing job because I was comforted, but I don't remember. And I said, don't stop doing that. But maybe they come the day after.
Yeah. Yeah. The crisis intervention, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes the shock, you're in shock, picking up, but what you're doing now is something that a lot of people don't. You're taking a terrible situation and you're going, I want everyone out there, to understand what I went through and understand that there are things and steps and stuff That is huge, and it's hard. I say it's hard. I can't even imagine what you have went through, what this is for you, what you going on sad times talking, what you standing in front of people preaching about these things, how hard it is, but you're doing that and helping others. That shows your character and your, I don't want to say your worth, but it shows, who you are as a person, and taking something like this and saying, I want others to benefit from something, if you can, from something so terrible, and kudos to you. It is an amazing thing that, the Lord's even allowed you to be able to do that.
No, thank you.
Thank you is the point. And I don't know how to say that properly. Because you went through something that no one ever, the Lord will never give you more than you can handle, but sometimes I'm sure you probably wish he didn't trust you so much, is an understatement.
It is an understatement. And the thing is, well, you know what? This is my show. I can do it. There's a passage in 2 Corinthians that Paul talks about the thorn in his flesh, and he wanted it removed, and we don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, it was his past. He killed people.
Mm-hmm.
Brent. He killed people, or had them killed. I don't think he used his hands. He had people killed. And I think that bothered him because he realized he was doing it ignorantly, but it's still getting done.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord said, my grace is sufficient. I'm like, yeah, it is. But man, this is, I put the first pile of dirt in my son's grave.
Yeah.
I arranged his funeral, found out that Gerber Life does not cover everything, which is insanely expensive. I have been distant in a lot of ways. I'm not the same person that I was. I sent you a picture earlier about a comic book that I've enjoyed. And then the last issue of Justice League versus King Kong and Godzilla came out, and I read that. I don't enjoy that stuff as much as I used to. Football, my Titans. I used to think about them all the time. I don't really enjoy that anymore. Because I got Titan stuff all over my office here, and next to a Hysteria 51 poster over there. I got Titans, Batman stuff all over the place here, and whatever.
And that might come back.
And I'm hoping it does.
I'm sure it will. But you're not the same person, because you can't be. Because what we go through, good or bad, my childhood, your childhood, everything, it shapes who you are, the changes, the things. And, the things that comfort you, might not work, but then you're never going to be okay. It's never going to be a happy thing or anything like that. That's the wrong way to say it, but you know what I mean? It's never going to go away. It'll always be there, but things will come back where you're like, you know what? I can still find myself going back to these other things, because that's how life works, because we do allow ourselves, hopefully, to grow all the time. And that's what you should be, everyone, I hope would be, you're striving for, because staying sedentary in anything is usually not the way to be. And that includes sulking or happiness, whether your happiness is brought by, can be drugs or alcohol or anything like that. It's fleeting. Don't allow it to become all encompassing.
You're right. I don't, my therapist says don't sit in it, and I try not to, because all I know is that if you sit in something too long, it gets nasty. I'm sending you something here. We're going to talk about this in just a second. I'm working on, you have your Green Lantern stuff. Again, if I have you on, we're going to talk about that. I'm starting to work on some things here that I've got more in storage, but I'm finding spots for it. I'll tell you in just a second when you get it. I don't want to sit in it, but also I've had a few days ago, I realized that with my medication, I'm not feeling. So I had to sit there in the floor of the kitchen, looking at pictures of my son, listening to The River by Josh Groban, which is the only song that got me to cry during the funeral. And I listened to it over and over again, and I finally felt something break. And it is the most draining thing that you can have. I just sent Brent a picture of a little bit of an Indiana Jones collection. It's not near what I have, but it's something.
That's the cup of a carpenter.
It is a cup of, except it's made of ceramics.
Yeah, but hey, you know.
I got it from the Indiana Jones place there in Disney World.
That's awesome.
When Dial of Destiny came out, people are saying he's too old. I was like, I don't care. It's Indiana Jones. I don't care. But I told my wife that the moment they play the theme song, I'm going to lose it. Because when in the background, if you look, there's a whip. My son had that when, what was it? It was the Crystal Skulls came out, and he played with it to the point that he just, all I heard going up and down the hallway,
right? Yeah.
I haven't pressed the button, but it got, he was young, it got wet and it got molded, so we got to get rid of it. I found it on eBay, got it, and somebody even gave me for Christmas the fedora. I have an Indiana Jones fedora. I don't trust myself with a whip. I don't. It's not good.
You, me both, right? But yeah.
Well, all I can say is, that scar he gets in Last Crusade from the whip. Then it would be worse if I did it.
Right.
But they started playing the theme when he's running on top of the train, and I lost it. And you think, how in the world and I like that movie. I did. It's Indiana Jones. I liked it. Was he a little too old for it? Sure. It's still Indiana Jones. So just there we go.
Yeah. There's that. I collect Green Lantern. I've collected it since I was a child. It's my thing, and I'm unapologetic about it though. So there you go.
He will. And I think, did my daughter send you something in? Yeah, when you were sick a while back. Yeah, I remember that.
It's still in my home studio. I haven't taken that stuff down. I have I have two things there. Well, not two. I have some pictures from you. Also, a few years ago, you sent me a Tennessee flag. And I had that hanging at my house in my home studio. And it's funny, my wife Lisa and I were like, we should put that out. We have a flagpole. We should finally put that up here now. Instead of just hanging in the house.
It's what we call foreshadowing.
Right? That's what I'm saying. You were just like, you were putting that magic on me. Like, here's your future.
Yeah. That's what I do. That's what you call, Screaming Jay Hawkins, I put a spell on you. That's
right.
Actually, Annie Lennox did a much better version because she's Annie Lennox, but I love the Screaming Jay Hawkins version. But just something like that brings up, I was in his room today because my wife has taken over the closet and I'm now in another room with my clothes.
Wives tend to do that. I've got one of those. I don't know if you know.
Well, I'm not touching that. That is for another day. But I was in there today and I looked, we took the bed out. And we're in the process of using it as a storage room once I can get the floor cleaned up. And I looked and I remember the scene. And it just here's something about this, Brent, that I can't stand. And I didn't really like it before, but it's hard for me to say anything. If you use, and I'm there sometimes, I get it. I can't stand it when I think it. But if you use self-harm to manipulate somebody else, there's a problem. And I'm not saying you do it on purpose. It may be a knee-jerk reaction, but it's a dangerous thing because what if you actually follow through with it? Cutting. Cutting. The people who do it, I'm not saying anything, but I'm telling you, if you do it wrong, it will not give you the results that you think you're going to get. All it takes is the wrong place and you could bleed out.
Well, it's a stopgap no matter what you're doing. It's not the answer. I think we all know that. But sometimes people do that. And if you're using it to manipulate someone, that's even further off. But anything you're doing that's fulfilling it, but it's an easy cycle to fall into. But man, you'll feel so much better if you do go and get help or treat it the right way. But sometimes that's harder. And it sounds crazy to say it's harder to go and talk to someone than it is to cut yourself or to do stuff like that. But that's a fact. It really is. It is harder in a lot of ways.
when you go to counseling, this is what I'm going back. Brent, I'm so excited. I'll have to share it to you. I'm 2 semesters, 12 hours away from getting my master's degree. Never thought I'd be here, but I'm here. And the main emphasis of it is counseling. It's not going to be, I'm not going to be a licensed counselor. That's not what it is. It's more practical here at church. Or if I get a quote real job, people's like, preacher, you only work 4 hours. All right. So if I get a real job, then I can use it. A real job. Let me tell you.
4 hours. My family's full of preachers. That's the longest 4 hours, a lot more than 40 hours a week usually. So you ain't got to tell me on that.
The last 2 years have been a blur. I'm not what I want to be with it, but I think I'm turning it around a little bit. My bosses have been very patient and they still, compliment me, say I'm doing a good job, but I know I could be doing more. I just don't have the push anymore to do more.
Yeah.
I just don't. But I want to use this to help people, like this particular podcast, to help people and the ones that I've done previously. But if you help here's what I was trying to get at. And if you've gone through counseling, you probably understand it. If you go through 2 or 3 sessions, nothing's going to get done. It's just not. Right. You don't know him or her. They don't know you. But when you start to be honest, it's going to feel like a tractor trailer hit you.
Yeah.
And I heard that. I was like, nah. Yeah. They do. It feels terrible. And then
you should leave being mad sometimes. You should leave feeling railroaded. You should leave feeling relieved. There's going to be things like it's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't. If it's easy, it's not working.
No. We're saying this. Sometimes they're going to be better than others.
Well, you said 2 or 3. That's how you go to find out if you like the person or not. If that's someone that their style. After that, then you keep going to figure out how to like yourself. That's right. Or to deal with yourself. Because that's why you should be going.
I was going to a place for a few years because we finally got insurance. Self-employed stinks insurance-wise. It stinks. It's where if you get your arm cut off, you might as well just go ahead and try to sew it back on like Deadpool because it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Deadpool 3 is coming out soon.
Speaking of, there you go.
Yeah. There's the lead in. Ryan Reynolds, send us something here.
Our next guest, Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. At that point, Brent, you need to be on. We'll just hold each other and cry.
He's paying my bills. Mint Mobile is one of our big sponsors now on our show, so I'm happy with Ryan Reynolds at the moment.
I respect that. Hey, send some down here.
There you go. Right,
you'll definitely do that. But when I finally got insurance, I went to a place in Dixon, which you'll see Dixon. It's not too far from where
Dixon is next to me. I'm not afraid. I'm in Kingston Springs. We can tell them. They can all come over. It's fine. I'm 15 minutes from Nashville. Dixon's a town over. I'm right there.
Yeah. So that's probably, we'll meet in the middle and I'll show you the Buffalo Wild Wings. And, and then we go up to Nashville. I'll show you the Great Escape. You'll need to know about the Great Escape.
Heck yeah.
But where was I going with this? I don't remember what I was going with.
Cutting your arm off, insurance, going to see your therapist.
So I finally, this is, by the way, way off the subject. So keep me on task here. People said post-traumatic stress syndrome. They diagnosed me with that. And I used to think it was just for military. It's not. It's kind of like the Men in Black would go with that memory stick.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. So my train of thoughts it wasn't good to begin with, but it's really bad now. But anyway, where was I, Brent?
Insurance going.
Okay. Yes. I had within 3 or 4 years, 4 counselors, and you restart yourself each time.
Yeah. And that's the truth. You really do have to restart.
It's not good. And you think, well, they got the notes, but they have to make a rapport with you and they have to be able to trust you. And the last one I had was video conferencing. I thought, no, I read people, not always great, but I read people. You have to be next to me, and I'm not physically next to me, but I have to look you in the eyes to make sure that you even care about me. And
right. That's such a hard, right. The body language, you're just the physical cues, you can't get through that way.
No. And I'm used to be a hugger. I don't touch people anymore because touch to me is a connection. And now because of Connor, I don't want to connect with people because I don't want to hurt.
I hear you.
And that's something I've got to be able to trust again. But I don't necessarily mean touching the counselor, but if I can hear you breathe and see your face, it's a connection that I'll have. I got for birthday, anniversary, whatever, a chocolate lab called Money Penny. Now, if you know the reference there, you're awesome.
Yeah.
She is, yeah, it's, and I prefer the newest one myself, just me. But she is starting to become loving. She curled up next to me, and I was like, man, I love this dog. She's great, but she's touching me, and I don't know what I think about that. And that's because of what happened with Connor. You lose a lot of things.
But sometimes a dog is exactly what you need. Is they don't care in a good way. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, I'm here for you no matter what. And sometimes if it's, if you can't be comfortable around people, sometimes an animal's what you need, or vice versa. That's why they use them for a lot of therapies and stuff. And it's not for everyone. I'm just saying sometimes it can be a good thing to learn with again.
What I've gotten, my daughter somebody gave her 2 hedgehogs, and now we have more. Did you know that works like that?
It's funny, right? Who knew?
It's funny.
They just put them in there and they multiply.
They're not bunnies, but they are close, and they're not pretty. Hedgehogs are not pretty.
No, I've seen. You are right. They look like, well, kind of like mice do when they're young. Ooh, they are not pretty at all.
Terrible. And if you ever want to know what a hedgehog feels like, go out there and just find a bunch of briars and just touch it, and then imagine them prickling up even worse. I've had a couple times where they've stuck me, Brent, that they've actually caused infections that I've had to go to the doctor for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy pet that we go, I want that,
I didn't want them.
No, but right. But humans, though, I mean, the proverbial
they're like, hey, this is like Sonic. Sonic is not like that. But I feel I relate more to them because right now, I used to relate to dogs that I love. I love people. I do love people. Mm-hmm. That's why I do what I do. I love people. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the physical reaction, what a hedgehog does, and we have the dad is humongous. He's a little bit bigger than he should be by a lot. What they do, Brent, is they'll if you pick them up, they'll bow up on you. They'll curl up. That's how they protect themselves, and their spikes will pop up. Mm-hmm. And then if they're not curled up, they will lay there and they will pop. If you ever watch them, they will pop up, and their first instinct is to hit what's coming at them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you think porcupines are bad. Porcupines will leave the quills in you and they will go. These guys do not leave quills. They will hit you and they will continue to hit, and they make a noise like and it's terrifying because I go in there to change, get clothes on, and I hear 5 of them now going. Right. It's like, what was that, Jason? Something like that. It's like, I'm not going to stay in here long. I don't know where they are.
You're like terrified. No, I know what comes next.
You win.
Yeah, right.
I'm not it. And the funny thing is, my daughter, her name's Kelsey. She will pick them up and then lay them on my chest. And they will poo on me every single time. And it's like they ate Taco Bell. It's just so gross.
They know. They're like messing with you.
They know what they're doing, especially the mom. Money Penny, because she's a lab. She's 25 pounds now. She's flopping around. She's sweet, but she's a piranha. She went up to him. And they finally calmed down for me. Their quills went down a little bit. I'm like, I'm not touching you. You can stay right there. I'm good. Money Penny went up there and sniffed it. And she wanted to play with them. If you know labs, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. Your dogs probably would react the same way. Brent has some awesome dogs. Anyway, this particular one, her name is Harriet. She bowed up and popped in her face. Now, Money Penny ran off. Oh. I laughed at it. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. I laughed at it. Now she smells them. She's like, I'm good.
Nope. Yeah. Pass.
Do you remember that scene from Batman, the animated series, where Batman beats up this dude? Batman does that. And then and one scene later, Batman's back in that house, and the guy opens the door, sees him,
and just walks out.
and just
Like,
walked
nope.
out and said, "There's
Yep.
nothing in." Yeah, nope.
They do that.
That's
There's
what
memes
it's
like smartest henchman in Batman history.
That's exactly what it is. So, so Moneypenny looked at it and said, "Nope," and
Nope,
then
thank
walked
you.
off.
Oh, that's funny.
But now I'm glad. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's such a an important day for you, and an important day for everyone to not forget these things and to remember, the things that shape us. And you're strong beyond belief, and you're more important doing these things than you could ever imagine.
At 5:00 today, marks 2 years. My daughter is with my mom. I'm going to pick her up a little bit. My wife and my other daughter are in Maryland now. I think they're in Maryland and Washington, somewhere in that area, because it's all blends together up there. They went there a few years ago with my son and my mom, and they sent me a picture of the Baltimore Ravens stadium. And I said, "Why did you do that?" I haven't forgiven them for 2000 beating the Titans in the playoff games. I'm not forgiving them. But I'm alone right now. And all I wanted last night, we had bad storms, like you probably had them too. I was up at 4:45 because the dogs.
It was loud. It was loud last night.
It was terrible. But I'm alone right now. So just talking with somebody is a blessing. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me into your show and your life like this. And I greatly appreciate it.
Now, before we head out, number one, when you are free again, we'll talk about something more funner.
Sure.
That's the Tennessean in me, guys. That's the Tennessean, more funner. If I put that on one of my papers that I have to write, I would get a strongly worded response saying that's not how we talk. I said, well, that's Tennessee. That's Tennessee. Did you know that -4 degrees looks like, okay. I'll tell you, my daughter sent me something. She gets her sense of humor from me, and it's terrible. She just messaged me, did you know that -4 degrees looks like a man taking a poo?
I think I've seen this before. Let me look. Yeah.
It does.
It does. It really does. Yep.
Thank you, Kelsey. I wanted her to be more like her. I wanted her to be more like her mom, but she is more like me every day.
That's what you get. The worst and best curse your kids ever give you is, when you have kids, I hope they act just like you.
Right now, yes, thank you, Kelsey. I appreciate that. Now this is on the podcast, and it's going. If you can leave us with one statement about mental health, what would it be?
You're not alone, and what you're going through might seem like you're on an island. You're not, and there is help, no matter how hard it feels like. And if you're not the one struggling, be there for the person who is, no matter how hard it is, because they feel like they're alone and they're not. And I think that's what happens to so many people is they just feel like they get to a point where no one can help, and there's always help. And you just got to be willing to accept it or find it or take it or whatever that means.
When we're finishing here, I want to leave you with what happened in the aftermath. I live right next to the church where I work. We go over here. People have started coming in. They hear they're coming. It doesn't matter what time they're here. And my mom I called my mom, and she reacts like a grandma would. My grandmother, who is 90, she just turned 91, but so she was 89 at the time. 89 at the time. She couldn't come up to the graveside or the casket. We had to ask somebody to carry her back. We're here, and your mind is going everywhere, being in shock. You're trying to make sense of things, and that is not possible. And I started thinking, where did he get his gun? Tennessee is a carry permit state. So several years ago, I got my carry permit. I wanted it. I go to Nashville a lot, sometimes at 2 a.m, and I'm proficient at it, but I don't shoot because it's expensive.
Yeah.
I'm good, but I don't shoot because it's expensive. And I started thinking, whoever gave him that gun needs to be prosecuted. Well, guess what? It was mine.
Wow.
It was mine. I had a 9mm. I had hollow points in it because, again, that stops people. If it was your life or my family's life and you're trying to hurt them, I'm not going to hesitate.
Yeah.
That was my idea. I would never hurt a person, but don't come after my family. So for 2 years, year and a half, I have fought the guilt, the knowing that it was my gun. And I got up in the pulpit and said it one time. And I think it shocked people because they didn't realize it, or number two, they didn't think that it would cause guilt. By me saying that, I had some people respond to it, and it was positive, but it was more like, all right, you need to move on from that. Positively, it wasn't diminishing me, but it was positive. Getting that out helped me to realize that if it wasn't my pistol, he would do something else.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yes. When anyone gets to that point, it's whatever they can do, but it's easier to blame yourself because, that's what we do as humans.
Yeah, we do. Men tend to do stuff that are more dramatic. And again, when I say that, it's not like, oh, look at me. It's more punch related. It's more, women tend to use things that are quieter. What I saw that day, Brent, was wild. And I got up. I spoke in October. I'm going to a place called Heritage Christian in Florence. I'm getting a degree called Master's in Ministry. And in order to do that, last semester, we had a whole thing on suicide, and they let me talk to them. But before that, I called them and I said, can I come down and speak? So it's a 2-hour drive from here. And they said, come on down. So I came down in October. It's basically, I can only do this because it's online. Otherwise, I can't do it. It's just, that's a lot of trouble. They have a lot of people online, and you can follow them on Facebook. It's a nonprofit organization, and I approve of it. It's Heritage Christian University. Just go on Facebook and you'll see their stuff. I got up to speak, and the thing I told them is, statistically, suicide is way, way, way too high. One is way too high, but it's high in this country. It's high. COVID caused it to go up because we were isolated, and we stayed isolated. And again, as I say, God has given us the desire to be with each other one way or the other, even if it's a small group of people. Brent, if you and I hung out, we probably don't even have to say anything. We're just there. And that's how men tend to do things. Women are a little bit different. But I said, statistics are fine and all, but then I put a picture of my son up there. When you give suicide a name, it becomes real. And his name is Connor James McFarland, born March 7th, 2005. On the day that my grandfather died 12 years later, actually, was pretty interesting about that. He died May 25th, 2022. When you give suicide a name, it becomes real.
Yes.
You give it a picture, you give it real. And I tell people there's a book by Peter Benchley called The Beast. And it's not as good as Jaws, but it was good. I liked it. At the very beginning of the book, to introduce this particular animal, you could just say, oh, this guy, this giant octopus squid type thing pulls down ships and people die. But he gives this a couple who just got married on a boat, and he gives them names. And now you're invested in them. And when they died, you're like, holy cow. So when you see Connor James McFarland, his middle name was inspired by James Bond. And I told my wife that. She said, well, I know. There's my father-in-law was named James, and a preacher that got me started is named James, but it's James Bond. I mean, it's James Bond. When you give him a name, it becomes real. So if this reaches out to anybody who's struggling, look at your license if you have one, look at your birth certificate if you have one, ask somebody, what is my name? And give yourself a name. You're not a statistic, you are a name. You have a soul, you have a body, and it may not feel like it, but people do love you. And if you ever need to talk, I'm not going to, Brent, I'm sure you would be available, but I'm not going to lump you in there until you give me.
I'm with you. Like, and I tell that people all the time. Like, I talk to people through Messenger and stuff all the time. Like, I'm available. Anyone should, like, if you need help, don't hesitate to ask. Period.
No, and for me, the Football's Family Facebook page, I think, has Messenger. But if you want to reach me easier and probably more quickly, go to Twitter at Jeremy_McFarland and just say, you don't know me, but I need to talk. And you will not get any advice from me. I've learned not to do that, but you will have eyes. And if we ever need to talk, and you trust me enough, I will give you my phone number and we can talk. I'm not going to give you advice because I'm not a trained counselor. And I tell you this, licensed trained counselors will not give advice. They will not do that, but they will help you see things on your own. And that's what I want to do. So if you ever have anything, just, can message either one of us. Kevin, I think Kevin is on Facebook, and I know I'm talking for him, but I think he would do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Well, Brent, thank you for coming on, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for allowing me.
And thank y'all for listening to the Football is Family podcast.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.